So one, don't let it fester. Two, remember, the context could be completely different, and how you took it is probably going to be hurting you a whole lot more than how they meant it. And three, a little grace spread all around. So the topic of courtesy and civility has been a big, big deal. And people like to say that this is all about the generational differences. And to a certain extent, of course, there are going to be generational differences. How could there not be? But to the other extent, maybe it's not so much generational as it is attitudinal. You see, the differing attitudes of courtesy extend across geography and time, where one culture feels that it's perfectly okay to do something in greeting, another culture is going to be offended. There was even a book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands that spoke to just what it took to greet someone appropriately. I'm pretty sure that since COVID, the kissing part has been toned down a little bit. But there are still places where embracing someone upon meeting them is perfectly acceptable, and other places where it would cause the entire place to go a little haywire. So, thinking about it, is it possible, just possible, that the person who gives offense is wholly unaware that they've just done so? Scary, huh? I have a friend who's got a child who is obviously quite a bit younger than I am. And it stunned me for about a year that thank you was sort of not in the vocabulary, at least not directly to me. And I realized at one point that the only thank you that I'd ever received was when, due to an entreaty by her parent, I'd send a donation to a charity that she was supporting. Then I got a thank you note. So one day, rather than let this fester, because it really did bother me, I asked, how do you view thank yous and stuff? And she said, well, I don't know, obviously you thank somebody when they've done something or given you something, but it's not a big deal. I said, so when somebody doesn't thank you, do you ever feel hurt or unappreciated? And she looked at me as if I'd somehow grown a second head and said, no, not really. But see, when I was being trained for the outer world and growing up, I think I had a permanent bruise on one of the sides of my ribs from my grandmother saying, what do you say? In case my response had not been quick enough. And I was telling this story in one of my classes when we were talking about the difference in context. And that evening, I went to the local drugstore, and I can't remember what it was I picked up, but there was this amazingly charming little girl, and she had these pigtails all over her head. I mean, there were just dozens of them, and every single one of them seemed to have a completely different color barrette in it. And so I looked at her and I said, you look very beautiful with all those colors. And hand to heart, I had to stop myself from laughing because her mother, boom, what do you say? Child looked like I must have looked back in the day. Thank you. Now, she didn't mean to be rude. And honestly, at that age, I didn't take it for being rude. And that's when I realized it's not really always just a question of how it's meant. Sometimes it's a question of your expectations for how to take it. Now, I do have a relative who pointedly asks if she doesn't get a thank you, in what she considers to be a reasonable period of time, will pointedly ask because she's concerned to make sure it got to you. And at first, I couldn't believe how much it bothered me that she seemed to have so little faith in the US Postal Service. But then I realized I didn't mean any harm by not thanking her immediately, but she took it to mean that her gift or her gesture meant so little to me that it could be just delegated to another day. So, one, don't let it fester. If somebody has reacted to you in a way that makes you kind of flinch or you're taken aback, well, take a few deep breaths, calm down, and talk to them about it. Two, remember, we're going to all have different ideas about what is or is not timely and what is or is not just a little over much. You understand that. And three, give a little grace. This video was brought to you by the Leadership Driven Project Management Academy. I'm Kimi Hirotsu Zimski. Thanks for listening. We have a group on Facebook if you'd like to join us.